Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Introducing the Open Education Association. My name is Aisha Abdullah, and I am a Open Education Project Manager for Spark, as well as a steering committee member for the Open Education Association. So I'm went ahead and share my screen. We have slides today for our presentation. Let me know if you all have any trouble seeing them. So, thank you all for taking the time to join us during this really busy time of the year. And for those who observe Thanksgiving, I hope you had a very long and restful break last week with family or loved ones. So, I know we probably have some people in the audience who have been with us every step of the way, and maybe others who are just tuning in for the first time today. And we may even have some individuals in our audience that are already members of the association. Regardless, everyone is welcome here since the association, first and foremost, was created to serve the field of open education and those who love the work that we all do, that being open education. So, before we jump into the core of this webinar, I want to just take a moment to walk through the agenda and what you can expect today. So, we're going to start off with the history of the Open Education Association, exactly what brought us to this moment today, and our official launch. And then we're going to go into introducing the Open Education Association, going through our mission, our vision, guiding principles, our objectives, and what we hope to accomplish. And then we're going to hear from a few steering committee members about why an association, why is this important, and why is now the time to do it. Then we're going to take some time to talk about next year, which is now right around the corner somehow, and talk about our goals and our plans for the field as a whole, as well as for our members. And then go more specifically into how you can get involved, whether you're a member or not, what are the different pathways you can join and be part of this work. And then lastly, we're going to end on some questions and get your feedback on some of our programming things that we have. So we will be using Padlet for that section. We will share it later in the presentation. And if you aren't able to be part of the Padlet, whether you're joining from your phone or something, whatnot, don't worry. We are going to send it out at the end of this webinar for people to join and add in on their own time. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Nicole, who will kick us off with the history of the association and how we got to where we are today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Aisha. And quick, we are recording. Wonderful. All right. Hello, everybody. I am Nicole Allen, Director of Open Education for Spark, and also a member of the Association Steering Committee. And what I'm going to do is provide a little bit of background. And this will not be new information for many people, but for many people it will be. So, thinking back, at least the modern open education movement has been growing rapidly over the last 20 years. In 2002, UNESCO coined the term open educational resources. It grew out of the open software movement. And in the US, much of the open education movement developed around this idea of affordability and replacing expensive traditional materials with open educational resources, working to solve the crisis that was created out of the textbook industry in higher education. And for so many years, that was such a successful motivator for the movement in higher education. But of course, open education is so much bigger than that. It is about supporting agency and innovation in education. It's about expanding access to knowledge to everyone, everywhere, making sure that both teachers and learners are engaged in the education process. And it's about finding ways to design our education systems that are more open and can really serve everybody and meet the needs of each and every learner. And the growth of the open education movement has been steady over these years. We have sort of reached, it got to a point a few years ago where it sort of felt like we were at an inflection point. On one hand, There was incredible numbers of state and system level programs. OER adoption was on the rise, with publishers like OpenStax creating materials that are some of the most widely adopted textbooks in their subjects, and state and federal policies that were supporting open education, including federal funding. On the other hand, we saw a response from the traditional industry where the textbook companies started to develop this new business model, inclusive access, automatic textbook billing, that really changed the kinds of advocacy that we could do on campuses. And it led to some of the most effective advocacy efforts being co-opted, the most effective advocacy language being co-opted by the traditional publishers. And of course, in the past few years, the shift to courseware and online homework and increasing focus and prioritization of artificial intelligence has really changed the way that we approach conversations about open education on campus, and really articulated a clear need to evolve how we approach this work. So if we can move on to the next slide. The conversations emerged out of this time, really culminating in 2023 at a session at the Open Ed conference on the future of open education advocacy. That was really about like, how do we evolve the way that we're promoting open education? And someone put in the chat at that session, we need a national association. So that was sort of the first time that that idea was spoken into existence. And out of that session, a collaboration emerged between three networks in the open education space: Spark, Doers, and the regional interstate higher ed compacts. And we facilitated a series of webinars that engaged in conversations about, like, do we need a national strategy for open education? How do we improve national coordination on open education? Recognizing that we've come such a long way, but there's a lot of overlap between the kinds of work that's happening. There aren't a lot of central structures that connect the disparate work. And there are many common needs that people articulate that don't have readily available solutions. Even if they're out there, they might not be easy to find. And what we ended up doing is presenting a proposal for national coordination on open education. And the Hewlett Foundation awarded a grant that would support building out this work. And the organizations behind that formed a steering committee to guide that grant-funded project, which was administered out of Spark. And that is the very beginning of what we called the Open Education Association Development Project. And we knew that we were headed in the direction of developing a shared association that could serve the whole field and help connect all of this amazing work that's happening and enhance it and uplift it. But we weren't exactly sure what it was going to look like and what it should focus on. And so our first priority was conducting a national needs assessment survey, which we did in early 2023. And it was really interesting. We went into this process thinking that the survey was going to identify a couple of like really clear programmatic needs that the development project could launch and, build up an association that way. But what we actually found through this whole process, through our field mapping, through the survey, which we received responses from over 1,000 community members across all 50 states. We conducted interviews with over 20 open education organizations and dozens and dozens of individual interviews. And what we found out of that is that this field is bigger than we ever imagined. And the findings of the survey is that actually there aren't those like huge programmatic gaps. The field has done a really good job of meeting the most pressing needs that are out there. And the people who are most involved in this work tend to know where to look for things. There are absolutely needs that still need to be addressed, and many spaces where we could do more. For example, funding, discoverability of OER, addressing the political and technological changes that are happening in our country. And all of those things are important. But the biggest gap is that we need a place where everyone can be a part of, and that can uplift the work that is happening across the field and advocate for open education writ large. So it's not about doing necessarily any one big piece of work, but it's about uplifting it all, making it easier to find, connecting it, and just filling the smaller gaps. So that is how we ended up with the association structure that we have today. So if we can move on to the next slide. And where we landed on developing this association, so we decided to accelerate the process of forming the association as opposed to first developing a bunch of programs. And we decided that, we being the steering committee, decided that an association that was a membership for individuals was the best structure. A place that can serve everybody and everybody can be part of, that is focused on both supporting members and supporting the field. And that sort of brings us to where we are today as we're thinking about how do we move forward. And we are currently structured with our steering committee as the primary programmatic leadership of the organization, and the staffing continues to be supported by the grant-funded work through the end of 2026 through Spark. We're also incorporated as an independent 501c3 organization and have released a governance roadmap that outlines the timeline for building that piece of that out over the next year. But where we are is that we have emerged. We've begun signing up the first set of members. A very special group of people get to say that they have been members of the association since 2025. We'll share more about that later. But that's sort of the where things stand. We're going to be spending the rest of the webinar talking about where we go from here in terms of how the organization's mission, vision, and values are structured, what our programmatic activities are going to be headed into the new year, and how you can get involved. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Abby to pick up on the next part.
Thank you, Nicole. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Keeping my eyes. Okay, thank you, Joy. All right. So, thank you, Nicole, for giving that sort of background on how the association came to be, the ways the community has sort of shaped all this good work. Uh, Everyone, my name is Abby Elder. I'm the Open Access Librarian and Open Education Lead at Iowa State University, and I'm on the steering committee for the Open Ed Association. I probably should have started with my introduction, but that's fine. In this section, I'm going to review what grounds and guides the association's work. So that includes our mission, vision, guiding principles. I know those of you who have written mission and visions will think, okay, I'm kind of sick of this sort of stuff, but it's good stuff here. So, as a quick disclaimer, these are only preliminary statements. These will be finalized over the next year, but they should capture the heart of what this association is here to do. What is our vision? Well, our vision is that the Open Education Association envisions a world where openness throughout our educational systems removes barriers to knowledge and fosters opportunity, participation, and growth for all. This really speaks to the future we're striving toward, one where openness isn't an add-on, it's not some nice to have, but it's something foundational that expands possibilities for everyone, learners and educators alike. Sort of jumping off from that, the mission of the Open Education Association is to strengthen and connect the U.S. open education field through strategic coordination, advocacy, and collaborative action. This might sound vague at first, but when it comes to achieving this vision and mission, we do have specific guiding principles that ground our work. And those are to serve as a connector between individual practitioners, institutional leadership, and policymakers to build and share shared understanding and momentum, to operate at the national scale while being attentive to the local and regional realities that shape education, especially in the US. It's very different across different areas. To act in partnership with the broader field, ensuring that our activities meet needs and do not duplicate existing work. And that's something that we've talked about throughout the entire development of this association. To create space for meaningful participation by individuals throughout the open education ecosystem, so everyone has a space where they belong, not just people who actively promote open education, but also those who want to do it in their own classrooms, who want to explore more about how this works. To provide value to members while staying true to the ethos of open sharing and service to the broader field, to promote transparent communication and regular feedback loops to foster responsiveness and trust, as any good association should, and to prioritize integrity and care in our work to avoid replicating harmful structures while acknowledging that many are built into the systems we navigate. This is education, after all. Together, these principles outline how the association approaches its work and the commitments that guide how we hope to serve the field as a whole. So, those are the guiding principles for what we're doing, our mission and vision, but I'd like to also share what we will do. The association has 5 strategic objectives for how we're going to do this stuff, but shapes our programs and activities and sort of serve as our roadmap. These objectives are to increase the visibility of open education in key forums that influence decision makers, expand investment in open education and access to funding opportunities for creators and practitioners alike, to build shared infrastructure to support sustainable, scalable open education work, to enhance the recognition of open education as a scholarly practice and professional field, and to respond strategically to barriers that hinder open education or reinforce closed systems, because they're going to change over time. We need to find ways to address these and come to terms with them as they appear. In a more focused sense, we hope to accomplish these objectives through some key areas. So I know it's another list, but this association hopes to serve as a national voice to promote and advocate for open education in the U.S. higher education space, to connect and coordinate with people and organizations across the field in service of greater collective outcomes, offer strategic programming to address needs identified by association members and the broader field. One moment. To offer and the broader field, curate and disseminate information about open education, making it easy to find and use, and become established a sustainable nonprofit organization, which is no easy feat. But these are all things that are going to help us become a better association for the community and to support you all. So later in the session, we'll talk through our plans for next year more specifically, and you'll be able to see how the work of the association ties back to these objectives more concretely. Now, before I pass things over to the next person, I want to say a quick few words about membership because it is a foundational piece of who we are. Nicole mentioned this in her section, but the Open Education Association is an individual dues membership organization. Individuals will join and be part of this group as a whole. And we know dues can be a barrier. So we talked about this a lot while we were getting ready for this launch. How do we manage being an open group and also having dues? While the association has some support from grants right now, grants can only support so many activities, and we need to build for long-term sustainability. So in order to do that in a way that aligns with our open values, we're aiming to keep membership accessible to anyone who wants to join and contribute to this work. That includes offering a tiered dues structure that accommodates different financial circumstances and providing scholarships for those who need them. Finally, we recognize that much of our work benefits the field broadly. So we will never enclose content that we're creating as an association just to create member value. Everything we make that is going to benefit people is going to stay open and stay available to everyone who wants it. We see membership as a way for people to have deeper participation in the governance committees and programs of the association with more opportunities to shape what the association does, not a way to get access to content. With that said, I'm excited to hand it over to our steering committee member, Amanda Larson, who will talk about the Open Education Conference and how it intersects with the association.
Thanks, Abby. Can you guys hear me okay? Good, thumbs up. Hi, everybody. Hi, pals. It's so good to see so many of you here. I'm thrilled that I get to share that we are going to be entering a new chapter together. The Open Education Conference is transitioning to be housed in the Open Education Association. And this move is really exciting and seems like a national evolution for the conference. It brings us into closer alignment with a growing, sustainable organization that shares our values and our vision for open education. With that said, I want to be really clear. This transition is at the very beginning steps, and operationally, nothing is going to change right now. The incredible conference team that you know and trust remains the same. The Open Education Conference is going to continue to maintain its autonomy, its community driven spirit, and the open, inclusive culture that makes this event so special. What this transition does mean is that we will be able to really strengthen our foundation for the future by building deeper connections, sharing resources, and ensuring that the work of the Open Education Conference really continues to thrive for years to come. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Aisha.
Thank you so much, Nicole and Abby, for providing the history and values in of the Open Education Association, and to Amanda for sharing about the Open Education Conference. And we put a link in the chat to learn more about Open Ed 26, which is going to be virtual next year, and we hope that you all are able to attend. So I want to now pass it over to three steering committee members who will take some time to jump into the question of why an association, why now? So they will share a little bit from their own perspective, both in their professional and personal roles, on why they believe it is important for the open education field to have an association that is dedicated to advancing this work. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to steering committee member Joy.
Thank you, Aisha. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm joining. Okay, great. I'm traveling, so I was hoping internet would be stable. It is my great pleasure and honor to serve as a steering committee member and to just share a little bit about why we have this need for an association now. On a very personal level and professionally, I think that if we're able to professionalize the field, that's in great service and is really of great importance for all of us. Nicole shared that we have a very strong history kind of transitioning from a movement to an actual field. And also, I should have shared that my professional role is I'm the director of online education at College of the Canyons. It's one of the California community colleges, which is a very large system. And for me, professionalizing this field really strengthens open ed as really like a sound pedagogical teaching practice. Of course, I believe very strongly in the value of OER, but also in my professional role, I really come alongside faculty to help them identify creative and sound pedagogical ways to approach their teaching and learning. And so professionalizing the field really helps to strengthen that. And additionally, you might have heard that California recently received a very large investment to support OER, but that eventually will come to an end. And again, being able to really professionalize our field, I think will really strengthen our advocacy efforts. And, if we can then really unite to advance those advocacy efforts, I think that will really help all of us to benefit. So, again, there's so much great work that is already happening in our field, and so really our goal as an association is not to duplicate efforts, but to help identify gaps, to really serve as a hub for resources, and very importantly to me, really build community to bring us practitioners together to help solve problems. So, you know we are in very uncertain times, but I think one thing that makes me feel certain is that open ed really does allow us to continue doing the good work that serves our students and that best serves our students, and the community that this association will foster really ensures we aren't doing this work alone. And I hope that you all really feel the benefit of community that results from this association coming together. So with that, I am going to pass it on to fellow steering committee member Rebecca.
Thank you, Joy. My name is Rebecca Karoff. I'm an Associate Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs in the University of Texas System, and I'm honored to be a part of the steering committee for the Open Education Association. I'm going to sort of reiterate and affirm much of what my colleagues have been saying. The Open Education Association really does fill a void with its strategic approach to open as a field, akin to a disciplinary and professionalist organization. And I think this has really been lacking in the open world in the US. It's really, I will say, the ability to join as an individual meets my personal and professional needs. I'll kind of elaborate a little bit on that. And those needs are as a student success person or leader in a very large university system. My work is focused on systemic approaches to removing barriers to student success in terms of finances, in terms of the curriculum, in terms of policy, in terms of academic and social belonging. And the association facilitates, to my mind, a very holistic and silo spanning understanding of open across practitioners, creators, leaders, and advocates. And it really does build some bridges for me that I find very meaningful personally and professionally, including even in the ways that, many of us do our work where we might be in a library, we might be in a administrative role, we might be in, enrollment management, we might be working on whatever the role is. We often don't even talk to the other offices and units in our institution. And I think, this association will really allow for some of that bridge building and confronting silos and trying to remove them. There are lots of incredible open networks and associations and organizations out there, and many of you are members of many of them. Some of you are leaders of them, and I think it's really great to sort of have all those. But in my role, I'm not an open librarian or a librarian at all, or I'm not a faculty member engaging with OER, so I don't have open education in my title, even if I've made it part of the student success portfolio that I lead. I will also reference Doers, which has been an incredible community and resource with its focus and emphasis on system membership. But the Open Ed Association positions me to make a broader case to advocate and to move change at scale and systematically. In my case, across 13 institutions with over 260,000 students that we serve, and also statewide in Texas. But it certainly focuses and allows us to focus, as other colleagues have said, on finances and affordability, but also on deeper student learning, on student retention and completion. And I really have promoted quite widely that open really is a form of curricular innovation, as well as faculty and student engagement and creativity. So all those things are at the forefront of the way we're doing our work together as an association. I also want to just say we need more of my peers in student success leadership roles and even upper level administrators to help us make the case and advocate in the ways that the Open Education Association seeks to do. We also, I think, need stronger engagement from a wider net of funders who have under-supported Open as the student success movement. And so I'm looking forward through the association to engage a wider variety of funders and higher ed philanthropies, especially amid the uncertainty of what's happening in the education and department and what has been some strong funding for OER and open real opportunities here. I just want to say, why does open education matter in this, particularly in this current landscape? You've heard it from all my colleagues, but I love the context and purpose statement that I think it was, I'm not even sure who read it, one of my colleagues, but we're open really is built on the idea that that knowledge is a public good, and it is working to reduce all those barriers that are systemic in nature, and really do prevent people from having more free and equitable access to opportunity. So I love that mission that's the heart of it. Timing could not be more critical. I don't have to tell any of you whether you're in a red or a blue state, but we've all had to pivot in some of our language, some of our approaches, but we do remain unwavering in the commitment to expanding opportunity and removing barriers to student success and to closing gaps in outcomes. And I love the sort of platform and capacity of the Open Ed Association to advance all those things. So thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to my great colleague, Debbie Baker.
Thank you, Rebecca. It's so nice to see everyone. My name's Debbie Baker. I am the OER coordinator for the Maricopa Community Colleges in the Phoenix metropolitan area. I'm also an instructional designer in our district office. I am on the board for OER Arizona, which is a statewide network for open educators across the state of Arizona, and I am the chair of Doers. So I wear a lot of different hats at any given moment. But I have to say that the Open Education Association really meets my needs across all of those different roles and areas that I have managed to get involved in. If you are unfamiliar with Doers, Doers stands for Driving OER Sustainability for Student Success, and it is a collaborative of public higher education systems and organizations that are committed to supporting student success by promoting free, customizable open educational resources. Launched in 2018, Doers helps member organizations implement, scale, and sustain OER by advancing research and policy, sharing tools and learnings, and showing how OER can foster student success for all. And what's really exciting about the Open Ed Association is how naturally its mission aligns with and complements the work of Doers. While Doers focuses on developing research-based tools and scalable models, the association provides the broader infrastructure for community building, advocacy, professional development, and shared governance across the open education landscape. And together, these strengths help to create a powerful ecosystem. Doers often Doers may contribute the evidence-based practices and system-level implementations, while the Open Ed Association has the ability to amplify, sustain, and connect that work across a wider network. The association also offers a coordinated platform for national collaboration, helping to ensure that the frameworks, rubrics, and strategies emerging from Doers are shared, broadly adopted, adapted, and continuously improved. And in my opinion, in many ways, the Open Ed Association is a connective thread that helps the field move forward collectively. So at this time, I'd like to turn it back over to Aisha.
Thank you so much, Joy, Rebecca, and Debbie, for sharing your perspectives on why an association and why now. And for all those in the chat, I've been reading the conversation. Abby, thank you for sharing your perspective as well as a as a steering committee member, and then our wonderful community members chiming in on why they see this being important. I really appreciate it. Please keep the conversation going. This is very helpful feedback for all of us as well. So with that, I'm going to move on to our next section, which is what's upcoming, the fun stuff. So I want to take a few minutes to walk through some of the tangible things the association will be doing next year. And we've been thinking about this work in two main buckets. So the first one is efforts that strengthen the association itself and or advance the open education field. And then the second bucket is programming that is designed to support community members or association members more directly. So we recognize that these two areas may intersect at times. It's not like a full bulletproof way of thinking of things. It just kind of helps us divide up this section and talk you through it. So starting with that first area of efforts that strengthen the association itself and advance the open education field, we first have the goal of solidifying organizational governance and sustainability. So as we shared earlier, this is still an emerging organization, and an important focus of 2026 will be establishing a long-term governance and organizational structure. As we mentioned earlier, we have published a governance roadmap which lays this all out, as well as like our deadlines for making certain decisions and for how we will approach setting up long-term sustainable systems that ensure stability, transparency, and community representation. So another goal we have is conducting research on field needs. So as we also mentioned earlier, I believe Nicole covered, we launched our first national needs assessment survey earlier this year, and it was very important and foundational in shaping our work and even our decision to become an association as soon as we did. So we're planning on conducting another survey next year, 2026, to continue centering the voices of practitioners and to ensure our direction reflects what the community identifies as what is most urgent and what is most important. And also recognizing that we're in very like changing times, like one month is so much different than the next. So this survey really allows us to make sure that we're changing with the times as new problems and challenges arise. We will also consider other forms of research that can address gaps in both the field's internal understanding of open education work, as well as data that can support advocacy so we can reach a greater impact. We will, of course, as always, coordinate with other organizations working on research. Another plan we have is expanding resources. This includes lists, guides, newsletters, coordination infrastructure. So the association has already published a number of resources meant to help surface and connect what is happening across the field. This includes webinars, conferences, opportunities, and we are planning to continue to expand those suite of resources, including new lists and guides. And we're going to go into exactly what resources we offer a bit later and share our page for that in the chat. And we will also publish a monthly newsletter, and the association is actually planning on being the new home of the OER Digest as well. And then another goal we have is developing a national agenda for open education advocacy. So one of the major goals for 2026 is to collaboratively develop a national agenda for open education advocacy. We are still in the very early stages of exploring what this will look like, but whatever path we take, it will be co-created with organizations, networks, and community members across the country, and it's something that we're really excited about. This will also be a part of how we begin to engage in state and federal policy work as an association. Right now, there are associations leading that work, including Spark, and the association will work to define its role in this space, including by establishing a policy committee that members are going to be able to indicate their interest in being part of. So moving on to that second bucket that I mentioned earlier, which is programming designed to support community members and association members more directly. So our 2026 programming builds directly on the insights from the National Needs Assessment Survey that we did earlier this year. We heard clearly that the community needs support navigating political and technological change, curated tools and resources, accessing funds and funding and tools, and making OER easier to find and use. So our early initiatives reflect those needs. So the first is increasing OE visibility at key events. So one of our first priorities is outreach to key audiences and organizations. One of the mechanisms we are planning to utilize to achieve that is by focusing on conferences. We plan to expand open education's visibility at influential higher education conferences through travel funding and exhibits. Will support members in presenting to audiences that don't typically hear about open education, helping the field reach new partners and strengthen its footprint across higher education. We are also planning on engaging in direct outreach to organizations to help build some of these connections, including outreach to funders in the education and workforce space. All right, so the next thing that we really want to focus on is expanding professional development. So a common refrain is the importance of professionalization in the field. I know that was mentioned during Joy, Rebecca, and Debbie's section, and it was also mentioned a lot in the chat, like the importance of professionalizing the open education field. And the national survey made it really clear that people want more opportunities for mentorship and small group connection. So we plan to explore programming to support this. One of the ideas that has really resonated strongly is a mentorship program, which we intend to explore. We also know that professional recognition is important to many members of the field, so we'll begin developing ways to highlight outstanding contributions, starting with member spotlights, which we're going to share a little bit later. And we will also begin engaging with members to figure out what is most meaningful when it comes to recognition. Like, is it awards? Is it badges? These are some of the questions that we are hoping to explore alongside all of you next year. All right, next we have engaging members in shaping the work. So we will continue inviting members to guide the association's program through committees and working groups, Participation is completely optional, of course, but offers meaningful opportunities for leadership positions and collaboration. And we will also expand a bit later on what those committees are and how you can get involved if you're a member. And importantly, we're also going to explore ways for non-members to continue shaping the work like they have been up to this point, whether it's through working sessions. Of course, our National Needs Assessment Survey will shape the work, and whatever else makes the most sense next year. All right, so one of the last things I want to talk about is another one of our plans for next year, which is event programming. So I think we're all aware that our community loves webinars. We have a huge influx of webinars always available, which is great. And when we did our survey this year, it showed that webinars are, despite it being like a very saturated thing, webinars are still a very valued way of learning, especially when they are directly responsive to needs. So based on what we heard in our working sessions this year and what we've seen across existing offerings through our webinar calendar on our website, we have made the decision to launch a webinar series. And this is something that we have shared before, but launch a webinar series to get at the point that surface in the needs assessment survey of community members feeling the need to be able to respond to political and technological change. So these are a few potential topics that surface, like I said, after evaluating the webinar calendar that we have on our website of all the previous and current and future webinars that are going to be hosted and making sure we're not doing anything too duplicative, as well as the needs that surfaced in the survey of things community members want to see. These are potential topics we're looking at exploring. So we have fundraising, we have countering objections to open education, writing strong conference proposals, both for open education conferences and non-open education conferences, navigating burnout, which is unfortunately very prevalent in our community, artificial intelligence, AI, not much more needs to be said about that. And then federal policy briefings, being up to date on all the changes that are happening on the federal level when it comes to policy. And we also have a proposed format for this, and we're going to share a Padlet for you all to give your feedback on these topics, as well as propose some other topics, as well as give feedback on the format. So our proposed format is a 90-minute format, a bit on the longer side, but the idea behind it is that we'll have 30 minutes of a focused presentation, 30 minutes of knowledge sharing, really diving deep into an issue. And then the second 30 minutes will be a panel of experts, kind of going even deeper, bringing in different perspectives. So we're not just hearing the same from the same person or the same point of view. And then the final 30 minutes would be unrecorded breakout rooms. So you can kind of discuss the content as well as allow a place for you to make connections with other people across the field and maybe voice whatever your own concerns are, whatever the topic is. So we'll love, like I said, we'll love your inputs on these topics and the format. So please share your thoughts in the Padlet, which will be dropped in the chat. And we're also exploring ways to help community members build connections with other practitioners. So this will include things such as regional coffee chats and other networking opportunities. So yeah, I will now pass it over to steering committee member Liliana, who will share direct ways you can get involved.
Perfect. Thank you, Aisha. Can people hear me clearly? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So Aisha, for sharing what's ahead for 2026. My name is Liliana Diaz-Saladucan, and I'm Senior Director of Student Success and P20 Alignment at the Colorado Department of Higher Education. And I'm also honored to be part of the steering committee for the Open Education Association. And I'd love to spend a few minutes talking about how you can get involved with the Open Education Association. Now, we've designed two main pathways or opportunities that everyone can engage in, and these opportunities that are reserved for members. As Abby mentioned earlier, a core part of our identity is our commitment to openness. So much of what we do is designed to support the entire field, not just members. We won't restrict resources just to create member value, and we're always transparent about what is members only and why. However, our goal is always to serve the field first. So let's start with what's open to everyone. As mentioned by Aisha, we've already launched several resources to help connect and support the community, including actively maintained lists of webinars, conferences, and opportunities, as well as a Getting Started guide, which I would have very much loved when I first got introduced to this field. We also just released an open education state by state list showcasing who is engaging with open education across the United States. And it's a starting point to map state-based activity, which we expect to grow with community input. Now, the webinar series Aisha mentioned earlier is fully open to the community, and we strongly encourage you to contribute to the Padlet and add your thoughts on potential topics and formats you would like to see as things that are hosted by OEA. On the topic of membership, this is also open to everyone who agrees and aligns with our mission and values. On this slide, you'll see a quick overview of our tiered dues. So I think we go to the next one. Yep. And all tiers of membership get access to the same benefits. If cost is a barrier or participation for you, we encourage you to apply for a scholarship. Again, we want to reiterate the openness of this community. There is also the option to be a non-dues supporter. This is a no-cost pathway to show you your support for the association's mission. And individuals under this membership tier are not considered a member. However, you will get updates and be part of the constituency the association represents in advocacy efforts, which is critical and very important work. For those who are members or are planning on joining soon, here are some ways to get involved. Members will also have access to our members only directory. So please make sure your profile is filled in when you join, which also allows you to connect with other members across the country. And there is a members listserv and upcoming member exclusive programming like the mentorship program and the conference outreach initiative mentioned earlier. We also encourage you to fill out the member spotlight form so we can promote you, your story, and your work on our socials. And we want to showcase the amazing work supporting open education across the country. We also have an informal member social hour to kick off the new year. This would be a space to connect with other members across the country and discuss what you hope 2026 looks like for you. Early next year, we'll begin having committees and working groups, which I'm very excited about. And so count me in for the policy one. These groups are shaped by the programming shared earlier and by the feedback we received during the many, many working sessions held throughout 2025. As you can see on the slide currently, there are a list of potential topics. Actually, we need to go, there we go. And it is not the final and concrete list. Based on the feedback we get, as well as the amount of interest, this list may change, and by early next year, we will decide on what will be formed. Therefore, if you have thoughts and ideas regarding these committees, you can add to the Padlet, which will be posted here in a couple minutes. So you can let us know what you think of these topics and if there are any others you think we should consider. Each working group will vary, but in general, you can expect approximately 4 hours per month, including 1 to 2 meetings. And if you're interested, please fill out the form linked in the chat. Submitting the form doesn't commit you to anything. It just lets us know to follow up with you for more information and to confirm your involvement once these groups are launched. Another member opportunity we have is the steering committee. We currently have 2 open seats on the steering committee, and applications are open through December 10th. So please consider submitting an application. The time commitment is anywhere between 3 to 5 hours a month with 1 virtual monthly meeting. We will also be meeting once in person with location and dates in 2026 to be determined. All costs are covered, and you will also receive a small honorarium for your time. So if you're interested, please consider submitting your nomination for steering committee. And one final perk, if you join by the end of the year, you'll receive a digital swag pack in January, including a member since 2025, a badge, a Zoom background, and a few other surprises. So hopefully you'll consider all of these things and join us as either a member or by showing your interest in any of the kind of the activities we might be pursuing in 2026 or by applying for a steering committee membership role. And with that, I want to pass it over to Aisha.
Thank you so much, Liliana. And thank you, Gabby, for sharing all of the mini links in the chat. So we have about a little less than 10 minutes left. So the Padlet is open if people want to contribute to it. We can also answer any questions that you all have. There in the Padlet, there is at the bottom a place where you can ask questions, but you can also just post them in the chat. That's likely easier. Let me pull up the Padlet. Okay, oh, I'm sharing my wrong screen. Okay, here we go. All right. So I put this link in the chat. And like I said, I will also share it out. I understand it's a lot of information. You might need some time to sit on it. So I will also share it out to everyone who registered, and you can fill it out asynchronously. All of this is really going to help shape what we do with our programming as well as our committees. So I see a question down here. Will there be any emphasis on forming a scholarly research agenda for the field? This is currently lacking. That is great, and that we are definitely going to consider that. That has actually come up in conversations before about having a committee that is responsible for that. There is a research committee that we propose, so it can definitely possibly go, or research working group, it can possibly go under that.
And just studying that there are a few other organizations that are working on research coordination and agendas, so we would be collaborating with them.
Thank you, Nicole. And Linda, the deadline to apply for the steering committee is December 10th, which is next Wednesday. End of day, December 10th. Whatever your time zone is fine. All right. All right, y'all. So just a few things. Oh, wait, another question. Nicole, do you want to take this one?
Yeah. Reaching out to other scholarly organizations in adjacent spaces is absolutely on our priorities list, and AERA is already on the list. We haven't had a conversation with them yet, but it's definitely one conversation we need to have.
Thank you, Corey, for that suggestion. I'm going to steal your comment and add it to the chat, not the chat, Padlet, so we don't lose it. I see more stuff is coming in. Liliana, I'm interested in this committee. It's yours, Liliana. Let's see. In addition to webinars, I'll love to have a space where members who are currently developing OER can share their projects, like a show and tell opportunity every couple of. Oh, I love that, artistic grasshopper. That's a great way, especially with Find OER being a huge thing that surfaced in the National Needs Assessment Survey. That is a great idea. Disciplinary groups, or one's grouped by job type, so instructor IDs, librarians, etc. Can get advice and share resources with those in similar positions. It can be hard to find good spaces for faculty to meet and talk to one another about P&T for OER. Another great idea. Thank you, Grasshopper. Do you intend to make higher education free? That would be the dream. All right. So I want to just flag a couple of events that we mentioned.
Aisha, can I ask a question? Can I follow up on that? Yes. Basically, I mean, since we are talking about openness, in education, would that be like a goal? And especially in Massachusetts, I have heard about some community colleges that are free, and even some four-year colleges. So I'm wondering if that happened also in other states, or if there is a movement towards that.
Thank you for that comment. There is a national movement for free college, and that is often focused more on covering the cost to make it free to students, as opposed to necessarily making it free of cost. And there's a big difference between covering the price and making things cost-free and shared openly. I think there's progress we can make through open educational resources and open practices that contribute to the free college movement, but that is sort of a separate and distinct policy area. Thank you for raising that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. And thank you to everyone who is filling out the Padlet. Please keep it coming. So I'm recognizing we're almost at time, but before we break off, I do want to share the events page just so that you all have our upcoming events. Like we said, there's an info session, which is open to everyone. So whether you're already a member or maybe you're considering membership or just want to learn a little bit more about the association and a place to ask more questions, we encourage you to register and come to that next week. And also, if you are already a member or planning to be a member, there is a New Year social hour that is going to happen in January. That's really informal, just a place for to disconnect from your work for a second and talk to other members of the association and have casual conversation. So before we drop off, I just want to end off this meeting saying thank you to everyone who has been involved thus far. Whether you were just a participant in a webinar, that is a huge deal to us. Consultations that we've done, organizations that we met with, you answered the National Needs Assessment Survey, Padlets, working sessions, literally everything that we have done over the past 2 years, whatever type of capacity that you contributed. It has meant so much to us. And we're really still in this surreal state where we can't believe that this is real and that this is a thing. And even going through all our goals of 2026, I'm like, oh my gosh, like we're going to do a lot. And it's really exciting. So just thank you to everyone. Thank you to our interim steering committee that guided us last year. Thank you to my wonderful steering committee this year, who has been such great stewards, to our board of directors, to our wonderful staff. It's just been such a great experience. And I'm really excited that this is finally official, that we have an amazing community that we're supporting with so many people who believe in this vision and believe in this work, and just being able to focus on open education in a space of like-minded people who support open education has just been an amazing experience. So thank you all so much. And we also, exciting, have 100 members already. So if you're not a member, we would love for you all to join. And even if you don't join, it's really like just having you be part of these conversations and coming to these meetings means so much to us. So thank you all so much. And our emails are always open, and open door policy and transparency for everything. So just thank you. I'll stop being sappy. Enjoy your holidays, enjoy your time off, and thank you all for the time you've given us today.